I bought the house for the pool. Not the neighborhood, not the freshly painted shutters, and definitely not the homeowners association. It was the pool, a turquoise, sun-drenched oasis that stretched across the backyard like a promise of peace, that sold me. After years in the military, peace was all I wanted. Morning laps, afternoon floats, evening swims under the stars. The pool wasn't a luxury. It was therapy, but peace I would learn how to price. And in this neighborhood, her name was Karen. She introduced herself the day I moved in, right as the movers unloaded the last of my furniture. Blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, and a clipboard clutched like a badge of honor. "Welcome to Stonebridge Glen," she chirped, eyeing my dusty boots. "I'm Karen, president of the HOA. I nodded, offered a handshake. She declined. "We take pride in maintaining high standards around here," she said, glancing past me at the backyard. "That pool of yours, beautiful. Just be sure it complies with our aesthetic guidelines." I blinked. "It's a pool." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We'll be in touch." And she was. Constantly. A week in, I got my first notice, typed, laminated, and slid under my door. Umbrella fabric must match HOA color scheme, beige, taupe, or soft clay. Your current color, navy, violates Section 12A. I ignored it. 3 days later, a photo of my pool lights appeared in the HOA bulletin with a snide caption, "Holiday decor?" In June, when I confronted her, Karen didn't even pretend to be apologetic. "We're just trying to keep the community cohesive," she said, her tone sugar-dipped in superiority. "Some residents find multicolored lights unsettling. Some residents need a hobby," I muttered. She heard. Her lips tightened. That's when the real games began. Every week, a new citation. Unapproved towel rack, excessive pool noise from my one-man lap sessions, overly tropical potted plants. She once scaled a stepladder to peer over my fence and snap pictures of my pool float, a giant flamingo she claimed was too whimsical for Stonebridge Glen. I tried to reason with her. I even offered to attend a board meeting, but she didn't want cooperation. She wanted control. Then came the bylaw change. Buried deep in the HOA's monthly newsletter, just above the pancake recipe and classified ads, was a quiet, barely noticed line. Shared use of private water features may be permitted for sanctioned HOA events with advance notice and board approval. I nearly spit out my coffee. I checked the fine print. Sure enough, Karen had pushed through a vote, while I was away on a work trip, to classify my pool as a neighborhood asset under newly revised guidelines. And just like that, my retreat had become a community feature. The next day, a glossy flyer landed in every mailbox. HOA celebrates. Engagement party for Karen's daughter, poolside bash. Catered event, DJ, champagne toasts, Saturday, 3 p.m., residents of my address. I stood on my porch, reading the flyer as neighbors waved from across the street, excited and oblivious. My fists curled around the paper. It wasn't just disrespect, it was an invasion. I stormed across the street, knocking on Karen's door harder than I should have. She opened it wearing a silk robe and an expression of fake surprise. "Oh, I was hoping you'd RSVP. The party's going to be fabulous." "You planned a party in my backyard without my permission," I said, voice low, tight. "It's not without notice," she said sweetly, tapping the flyer. "And the board approved it unanimously. I never agreed to this." "You didn't need to. That's how democracy works." She turned to close the door. I caught it before it shut. "If anyone shows up in my yard, I'll shut it down myself." Karen smiled, cold and triumphant. "We'll see about that." She closed the door with a click. I stared at it for a long moment, 1,000 thoughts racing through my head. Anger. Disbelief. But above all, resolve. She had taken it too far. This wasn't just a party. It was a power play. And I don't lose those. Saturday arrived cloaked in sun and smugness. By noon, my once private backyard was being transformed into a party venue. Karen's army of event planners descended with folding tables, champagne buckets, pastel bunting, and a sound system loud enough to wake the neighborhood. A white pergola had been erected without my knowledge, hovering like a parasite over the deep end of my pool. I stood inside, arms crossed, watching from the kitchen window as strangers paraded across my lawn, laughing like they belonged. The nerve. Karen strutted in at exactly 12:30 p.m., wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a peach dress that screamed, "Mother of the bride," even though it was just an engagement party.
She didn't look at me.
Didn't knock. Just walked through the side gate and took command like a general surveying occupied territory. I stepped out. Karen's head turned slowly. Her expression, a well-practiced blend of surprise and annoyance, barely concealed the satisfaction beneath. "You're welcome to stay," she said lightly, as though offering crumbs. "Just as long as you don't interfere." "This is my property," I said, voice measured. "You have no right to be here." Her smile was the kind you give someone you've already decided to crush. The bylaw is clear. Section 8C, approved community events may utilize neighborhood amenities with 72-hour notice. You were notified. That clause is going to court. Feel free. In the meantime, we're already set up. She gestured around like she'd decorated Versailles. Would be a shame to disappoint the guests. I scanned the yard. Folding chairs flanked the pool. Speakers blasted a steady beat. A group of teenagers had already taken over the shallow end, splashing water onto my flagstone patio. My grill was manned by a caterer in a branded apron. "I didn't authorize this," I said, jaw tight. Karen leaned in. "You didn't have to. That's how community works." She turned away, already done with me. I walked back into the house and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the glass. I paced. Part of me wanted to call the cops, but I knew how that would play out. They'd see the flyer, the bylaw clause, the champagne glasses. They'd call it a civil matter. Sorted through the HOA, they'd say. But Karen hadn't just crossed a line. She'd redrawn the map. I went to the garage and opened the storage cabinet. Tucked behind some old tools and a spare filter cartridge was the large red wrench I used for winterizing the pool. I held it in my hands, testing its weight. It felt solid. Certain. I returned to the house, glanced once more through the window. Karen was clinking glasses with a group of well-dressed women, basking in attention like a cat in a sunbeam. A DJ tested his mic. Testing, testing. Get ready to celebrate love, laughter, and the future Mr. and Mrs. I opened the sliding door and stepped out. Conversations dimmed as I walked across the patio. The caterer froze. Karen turned, her smile wilting at the sight of me. "What are you doing?" she asked sharply. "Maintenance," I said flatly, gripping the wrench. "You're being ridiculous." I walked past her, kneeling beside the pool's equipment panel tucked behind a row of shrubs. With a practiced twist, I turned the main release valve halfway open. A quiet hiss followed by a glug-glug-glug of draining water filled the air. Karen's expression twisted. "You wouldn't dare." I met her eyes. "Try me." Behind us, the music stuttered. The guests noticed. The water level, still imperceptibly slow, had begun to drop. "This is vandalism," Karen hissed. "You're destroying a community event." I twisted the valve further. The draining accelerated. "I'm protecting my property. Everyone's watching." "Good." Karen lunged toward the panel, but I stepped in her path. "Touch it, and I call the police for trespassing." "You can't do this." "I can. And I am." The caterer backed away. The DJ powered down his system. The scent of grilled shrimp faded under the hot sun as guests murmured, clearly uncomfortable. Karen stood frozen, trapped between outrage and realization. Her meticulously crafted event was unraveling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Water gurgled beneath us, like an exhale. For the first time, Karen looked uncertain. I turned my back on her and walked inside, leaving the wrench in plain sight. The water kept draining, and the war, I knew, was far from over. Sunday morning dawned heavy with silence. The party was over, but its aftershocks were just beginning. My phone lit up before sunrise, emails, texts, HOA alerts pinging like a slot machine. I didn't need to read them to know the message. Karen was furious, humiliated, and preparing her counterstrike. I finally checked the HOA portal. A formal complaint had been lodged against me: willful sabotage of an approved community event, property misuse, and, my personal favorite, reckless endangerment via negligent water management. Reckless endangerment. For draining my own pool. I laughed out loud, the sound hollow in my empty kitchen. But it didn't stop there. By noon, a violation notice had been taped to my front door, bold red font, laminated as always. Urgent. Pending fines for HOA code violations, unauthorized modifications to shared resource. Immediate remediation required. Underneath it, Karen had handwritten a note in cursive, so tight it looked like it was carved. Consider this a warning. You brought this on yourself. I tore it down without a word. But that afternoon, the real blow landed. A letter arrived from the HOA's legal counsel, an official cease and desist order threatening civil action if I interfered with community-approved access again. They even included photos of me holding the wrench. One neighbor must have captured the whole scene on their phone, probably thinking they'd just filmed the neighborhood scandal of the year. It wasn't just intimidation.
It was war.
But I knew how to handle pressure. I hadn't spent 2 decades operating in war zones just to get pushed around by a clipboard tyrant in a sundress. Still, I needed a strategy. I called Mike. He picked up on the second ring. About time you called. Mike was my old platoon sergeant, retired, sharp as a tack, now working in local government code enforcement. The man knew every municipal loophole like a chess master. I explained everything. There was a pause, then a slow chuckle. She weaponized the bylaws against you. That's cute. I want to hit back, I said. But by the book. He grunted. Then start with the bylaws. Every power move she's made is built on that foundation. Tear it out, and the whole thing collapses. He was right. I spent the next 3 days doing exactly that. I dug into the HOA's charter, minutes from board meetings, amendment votes, everything. And there it was. Buried in a dense policy update from 2 years ago, a clause stating that any modification to common use policy required at least 75% approval from property owners, not just the board. Karen's little power grab? It had passed with a 5-person board vote. No community referendum. No homeowner consent. Illegitimate. I gathered the documents and walked straight into the city clerk's office. Mike met me there, looking like a man who couldn't wait to light a fuse. Together, we submitted a formal complaint of governance misconduct and misuse of authority, citing multiple violations of municipal code. Mike even flagged the HOA's unauthorized use of private property during an event where alcohol was served without proper permit, a big red flag. By Friday, the city launched an investigation. But I wasn't done. Saturday morning, I hosted a pool recovery barbecue. No flyers, no DJs, just a handwritten sign on my front lawn. Come hungry. Respect the yard. Karen not invited. People came in droves. Turns out, I wasn't the only one Karen had bulldozed. She'd fined one couple for planting sunflowers that were too bright. Another family got cited for letting their kids chalk on the sidewalk. An elderly woman whispered that Karen once made her take down a wind chime that sounded too emotional. As we grilled burgers and shared stories under the soft sun, it became clear Karen didn't lead the HOA. She ruled it through fear, pettiness, and paperwork. But not anymore. That evening, I posted a summary of the violations online. Nothing personal, just facts. I linked to the municipal code, the charter clause, and the investigation number. It went viral. By nightfall, neighbors were knocking on my door, asking how they could help remove her from the board. We printed petitions. Organized a vote. The mood shifted fast, like the neighborhood had finally woken up from a long, passive dream. Karen saw it too. She drove by slowly the next morning, windows up, lips pressed tight. For the first time since I'd moved in, she didn't stop to talk. Didn't wave. Didn't smirk. She just stared. And I stared back. The power was shifting. And the pool?
Still drained.
Still quiet. Still mine. But I had one last move to make. Sunday afternoon was warm, clear, and humming with possibility. The kind of day that felt like a fresh start, or the calm before a final storm. Karen had gone quiet. No calls. No emails. No declarations on the HOA portal. The silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. But I was ready for whatever came next. The community had rallied. 2/3 of the neighborhood had signed the petition for Karen's removal. Our bylaws were clear. 3/4 approval of homeowners could oust any board member through a special vote. I only needed 15 more households, and I had until Friday. But I wasn't going to wait for a vote. I had something more poetic in mind. I opened the pool valve that morning. Water rushed in with a powerful whoosh, echoing through the PVC lines like applause. After a full week of being drained dry, the turquoise surface slowly reclaimed the basin, reflecting the sky like glass. By evening, the pool was full again. But I didn't stop there. I installed a 10-foot privacy fence along the western edge of my property, the side that bordered Karen's. It was tall, sleek, and well within city code. I double-checked with Mike, just to be safe. Karen had often enjoyed peeking in during her routine inspections. Not anymore. Then came the finishing touch. Monday morning, a delivery truck rolled up carrying a wide vinyl banner, professionally printed, bold red and white letters. Private pool, no HOA access. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I mounted it right on the fence, angled perfectly toward Karen's kitchen window. At 8:15 a.m., right on schedule, Karen stepped outside with her teacup. She froze mid-sip when she saw it. Her face tightened. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply nodded once, then walked back inside. The next day, the city sent its findings to the HOA board. 6 violations. 3 counts of governance overreach. 1 confirmed misuse of municipal resources. Karen was given 2 options: step down quietly or face a formal review from the city council. She chose door number 1. On Wednesday, she resigned from the HOA board. No apology. No announcement. Just a quiet post on the HOA portal. Effective immediately, I am stepping down from my position as board chair to focus on personal matters. The response was thunderous. Within hours, residents flooded the portal with cheers, gifts, and thank yous. Someone even organized a Freedom from Karen potluck in the cul-de-sac. I didn't attend. I didn't need the celebration. The victory was already complete. But I had one final conversation left. That evening, I saw Karen outside, placing a for sale sign on her perfectly trimmed lawn. Her face was expressionless, but her movements were clipped, sharp. I crossed the street, silent until I was close enough to speak without raising my voice. She turned slowly. "You win," she said flatly. "It was never about winning," I replied. "It was about boundaries."
She scoffed.
"You humiliated me." "No," I said. "You did that to yourself. I just stopped letting you pretend you could do anything you wanted." Karen looked down at the grass. "You drained the pool." I reclaimed it. She nodded once, then looked up, eyes no longer hard but tired. I forgot what it was like to be disliked. I didn't say anything. That wasn't my burden to ease. She turned back toward her house. "You'll make a good board member." "I'm not running."
She paused.
"Why not?" "Because I don't want power," I said. "I just want peace." With that, I walked back across the street. The wind stirred faintly behind me, like the closing of a chapter. That weekend, I filled the pool with life again, kids from the block playing Marco Polo, neighbors chatting over grilled kebabs, laughter replacing tension. No permits. No politics. Just community as it was meant to be. No one asked where Karen went.
No one needed to.
I stood on my back deck, arms folded, watching the sun sink below the horizon, its last rays dancing on the water. The pool was mine again. And finally, so was the neighborhood.